Good morning, Michelle. Back again. Well, we're all finished with this, right?
I wish that was true. You can tell me it's true. We can wrap it up right now.
Works for me.
I don't want to ever, never again. All right. Section 1 recommended by SGO. I'm going over, if you want to share it.
You want me to share the screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
would you please?
Sure.
So I'm using my iPad because that's hard for me to see the writing on them.
Okay. Is it showing up for you?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, and I realize, Senator Sears, you probably didn't have time to take a look at this last night when I said.
No, I did not.
Understandably, but what I tried to do is because Senate Government Operations is looking at a number of issues related to this bill. And then as Senator Sears mentioned a little earlier, Senate Ag is discussing it, and they're discussing it again this morning with a couple tweaks. I incorporated the Senate Government Operations amendments that they've already agreed to in that committee, but I have more amendments for them that they're supposed to discuss this afternoon. But I understand that Senator White really is feeling poorly after her vaccination, and so she wasn't able to get back to me on comments about that draft and stuff. But I tried to just put in what I know that they've already agreed to, so that you could have a look at it, so you wouldn't have quite as much to do tomorrow.
Okay.
And I know we only have a little bit of time. I'm actually due in another committee at 11, so I'm just going to breeze through and show you what's here. So in section 1, this is your regulation by local government. And their recommendation is, and you'll see on section 1 down there on line 17 through 20, that March 8th, which is town meeting day for 2023, any municipality that fails to vote on the question of permitting operation of a cannabis establishment to sell retail in their town shall be deemed to permit the operation of both cannabis retailers and integrated licensees. And if it's okay if we don't, I mean, you can ask a question, but just so I can get through and show you what's here.
Yep. Okay. Go
don't
right
really
ahead.
so much debate the policy, but that's what their recommendation is. And they took testimony from the league and others. And so this is trying to get at the heart of what you had introduced, which is to kind of force the towns to all have a vote. And what they build on is to say, well, as of this certain date in 2 years, if you don't put it on, then you're going to be considered an opt-in town.
Michelle?
Yes.
I'm just wondering about that language. It seems to me as though it says any municipality that doesn't vote on the question on that day.
Okay, we can tweak around. We can mess around with the language when we come back.
Good point. I think it. Yeah.
By or
that date.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can I just pause here and ask the committee a question? This was originally something that was my idea, and it was before any towns actually voted on the question. And basically my thought was you would have a lot of problems getting towns to vote on the question. Are we wedded to this concept at all and the need to push this in the bill?
This came from government ops, so I would say we are.
Okay.
I like it, but I think it makes it more likely that the House would oppose this section.
Yeah, I'm seeing it as kind of a poison pill at this point in time for not just the House, but also for another signature.
Well, what they do should not affect what we do.
Okay.
Section 2.
So section 2, this has to do with the Cannabis Control Advisory Committee. So remember that there is a committee comprised of a number of stakeholders who are experts in certain different fields. There's different appointing authorities to that advisory committee. They're to be working on a number of issues in consultation with the board. And you'll see that on subdivision C4, they've added, so right now, currently, it's the removal authority is structured the same way as what you have for the Green Mountain Care Board. And so the 3 members of the Cannabis Control Board, a member may be removed only for cause by the other members of the board. And Senate Government Operations is recommending that you also allow a 2/3 vote of the advisory committee to remove a board member for cause.
Michelle,
Yes.
my memory is that for cause includes a hearing and due process.
You know, I have to go back and look. It's pretty standard language that we use, but it's not something I typically work with a lot. So
I'm thinking of in the liquor control board.
Right, it's modeled after the way that we do it in other statutes. So I would say if you have familiarity with that, it's not any different than that, but I can follow up.
Well, so my question would be, we're adding here another body that can remove them. And I'm wondering then, my assumption is that the remaining members of the commission or the 2/3 vote of the advisory committee would be linked with a hearing conducted by those different bodies to allow due process to determine whether it's cause. So in other words, we have the advisory committee now potentially conducting a hearing for members of the commission. So I just want to make sure my understanding of that is correct.
I can follow up for you.
Okay.
Michelle, with respect to the 2-entity option here, what happens if they have a conflict?
You mean if the advisory committee wants to do it and the board doesn't?
Well,
I think we should wait. This is a recommendation from Senate Government Operations.
Yeah, I think for
Senator
these, if I
White
could,
will hopefully be here tomorrow, and I think I'd rather continue to go through in the limited time we have.
okay.
Subsection H, the addition of the language on lines 14 and 15 that the board is to collaborate with the advisory committee on recommendations to the General Assembly. They also add a member. So if you look at the addition, so you're moving it from, so the recommendation go from 12 to 13 members.
Right, I remember Senator White talking about that. I don't remember why.
With the addition of, you'll see on line 8.
Cannabis Trade Association.
Yes, that's the professional organization for the dispensaries.
Okay.
Subdivision 2 is right now, the advisory committee has to be appointed by May 1st of this year. And Senate Government Operations is recommending that they be seated by April 1st. So moving it up a month, and that the first meeting be convened by the Secretary of Agriculture as of April 15th.
Of course, that assumes that we get a bill passed and signed by the governor by April 1st.
Yes, and that you have a board that is functioning by then.
I think this is March 11th.
Yes.
Seems pretty tight.
Okay, but they did it. Go right ahead, advertising.
So advertising, these are all basically, there's a lot of language in here. It's just reincorporating the issue of advertising back into essentially what you passed with Act 164. And so a lot of this is just kind of cross references and places where I need to put it, but we'll see that section 3 has to do with adding back in the language around when the board is reporting to you on, or no, I'm sorry, this is the fund, the regulation fund, is that the regulation fund is composed strictly of fees. And there is an advertising review fee. And so that would be with that money would go to the fund. Section 4 is amending the language in Act 164 on the reporting requirements. The board, as you know, is to report to you recommendations for fees. And this is adding, you'll see on lines 3 and 4 on page 6, the fee for advertising, because there's a requirement in the advertising section that prior to publication, that advertisements have to be reviewed by the board. Section 5 is adding the definitions of advertise and advertisement. Again, these are things you're basically picking up the language in the proposal that was adopted and sent to the floor by House Government Operations, but then didn't make it back over your way because it was replaced on the floor with a ban. But this is the definitions that were used for advertising and advertisement. And sorry, I got to scroll down here a ways because I had to renumber all this. Section 6. This is kind of the heart of the language that we've talked about before when I sent you all the advertising language through the history of Act 164, you know, the Senate's version, House GovOps version, House Pass version. This is the House Government Operations language. And when we go back over this, later, if you want me to, but you have seen that before. In section 7 is just adding a reference to the advertising provisions that pertain to youth that are already contained in section 864, but adding it to the youth section. Section 8 is adding the ability for them to adopt rules and on marketing and advertising that might further flesh out anything with regard to what you have for statutory guidance.
They is the control board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So next one is cultivation. And so Senate GovOps made this recommendation, but you also kind of sent this issue over to Senate Agriculture, and they're talking about it this morning, but I put it in here anyway. This is the issue of whether or not require integrated licensees who have like a 5-month window of being able to go first before the other retailers come on. You added in S25 a requirement that once they start going and selling, that they're to that 25% of the flower sold by those integrated licensees is to be obtained from a small cultivator. And Senate Government Operations added the words "if available." There was testimony in Senate Government Operations from the Vermont Growers Association that the witness said that that most of his members would not be interested in selling to a dispensary or an integrated licensee. And so the committee added that because if there's in this circumstances, if there's not enough product that's there that's available for them to purchase, that's been tested and meets the standards, then they wouldn't be subject to this requirement.
I can't remember now, was that statement based on the idea that they would not sell because of a political dispute with the idea of integrated licenses, or was there a practical concern?
I think you'd want to, I don't want to speak.
Okay. Okay.
I did not hear a practical concern. I'll say that.
Section 11, substance misuse prevention funding, that hasn't changed at all, has it?
No, that hasn't. This is the language basically that we're codifying because and you'll see in section 12, there's repealing the session law, and then it's codifying this and trying to kind of put a little bit of containment on it. So
what happened to the social equity piece?
The social equity piece, I didn't put in there because you've got a big kind of recommendation coming from Senate Government Operations on social equity, but that they haven't seen the language yet or approved. And so what they will be to you with is some language around the reduced or eliminated fees for certain individuals, as well as they're recommending the establishment of the Cannabis Business Development Fund and of seeding that fund with an appropriation, and then subsequently, after the integrated licensees begin selling, that they would be contributing 3% of their sales during that interim period, up to $50,000 per integrated licensee into the fund. So if you had 5 integrated licensees, you'd have $250,000 going from those integrated licensees into the Cannabis Business Development Fund. That fund would be administered by ACCD.
Okay,
And and the proposal that GovOps is talking about would have the advisory committee coming up with the criteria for who qualifies as a social equity applicant in terms of being able to access the funds, the loans and the grants.
okay. So begs the question why we didn't send this to government operations 3 months ago. Okay. I know you've got to get to another meeting at 11. So we got about 3 minutes left. Any further discussion? Anybody, any questions about this draft?
I just wanted to highlight the questions we had around removing people for cause. That's really my sticking point with what's here. And then, of course, we haven't seen the social equity language, but.
If there's a way that you can, I don't. Okay. I'm tempted to rise and send a bill to government ops today with Senator White not here.
But
surprise.
Wouldn't it miss crossover then?
I don't know. Good.
No.
I don't know. It's really a government ops bill now.
And ag.
And ag. I did talk to Senator Pearson. They're quite happy to be dealing with it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Won't be surprised at what they want to do.
Once it was legalized, it really is ag, gov ops, and economic development.
Yep.
You know, there's not a lot here that you would typically call judiciary.
Is Michelle, if there's a way to get us some sense of what's happening on the social equity piece today to the committee, distributed by Peggy, perhaps would be helpful. At least I would like to have some advance notice of that.
Sure. I've been in committee elsewhere all morning, so I haven't had a chance to really kind of catch up about with Senator White, or even if Senator White, I need to get some kind of a enough or approval. I'm just I sent her yesterday morning, so but I will try to get that at lunchtime.
All right, it is now I don't know what time it is. Now 11 o'clock. Well, 10:59. So we'll say goodbye to Michelle. We will take another break, which we've had a lot of breaks today, and get back at 11:15 to take up S97, which will prove to be the most exciting bill of